Hi everybody, Neil Kravitz here. I hope you're enjoying these daily clinical pearls. For this clinical pearl, let's talk about the old double expander. And what I mean by that is having to place an expander twice. Now, some may say this is because the expander was placed too early, and that certainly can happen. My clinical pearl that I always like to tell people is if the upper laterals are impacted, you can do an expander at age 7. If the upper canines are impacted, I prefer to do the expander closer to age 8 or 9, a little bit later than most. That helps that canine fit into the funnel between the lateral and the first premolar. And if it's just a unilateral posterior crossbite and there's no traumatic occlusion, I prefer to do the expander as part of continuous treatment closer to age 10.5 or 11, and I'll expand right before we place the braces, and that's a great option if the teeth are not impacted. Now, sometimes in cases of severe impaction, particularly with labally displaced canines, you'll do an expander in the first phase, and you'll need to do a second expander prior to starting braces in the second phase, or part of the first phase, kind of a continuation of the first phase, do an expander and then re-expand before you present a phase 2 treatment. That's very common. And what I'd like to say for this pearl is don't feel bad about that. That is sometimes just good orthodontic treatment. It does not mean you underexpanded, and it does not necessarily mean that you took out the expander too soon. Sometimes you simply need to do a second expander after the first premolars erupt to get even more expansion in the canine space to help those labally displaced canines into that funnel. So the pearl here is, do not be afraid to place a second expander if you need to do that during treatment. This is common, particularly for labally displaced canines. And if you are a second orthodontist, for example, and an expander was placed in the first phase and you think re-expansion is necessary, tell the parent. It's sometimes hard for the child who may not want the expander placed back in, but say, hey, listen, we don't need to keep it in quite as long before we transition to braces, but a little bit of skeletal expansion goes a long way to helping these impacted canines come in. Let me know what you think about this pearl. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to this page. Thank you for supporting the JCO.